I worked for companies and you had asked the CEO, what's the insurance company's purpose? Shareholder value. And I went, I wanted to tap out. I was like, done. That's not what this business is about. It'll never be that way to me. It will always be taking care of people.
Welcome to the Elevating Leaders series, where we go beyond the headlines and straight to the people who are redefining insurtech and business transformation. We've caught up with the visionaries and the pioneers that are currently driving the industry forward, bringing you exclusive insights, strategies, and stories you won't hear anywhere else. If you're ready to go deeper, this is your front row seat to the future of insurance. I'm Miguel Edwards, and this is 5 Minutes. Jackie Morales, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you taking time out of this busy ITC schedule here to be with us here on 5 Minutes.
Absolutely. So thank you for having me.
100%. Honor is all ours. So there's a quintessential question that I ask all my guests, particularly around the being in the insurance industry. Did you plan your career in insurance? How did you end up here?
Yeah, there's only a couple people who plan to be in the industry. It's the underwriters and the actuaries.
Sure.
And so, no, I kind of luckily stumbled into it. I had a friend who was working in an insurance company. She said, come in and do an interview. And I was like, I don't think so. And I got in there. I got the job as a manager of a 15-person call center.
Okay.
And I realized really quickly that I liked managing people. I realized this was such a people-oriented business.
Yeah.
And I really believed in what insurance stood for, what the mission and the purpose of it was. And I was like, this is me. I can do this, and I like it. And so I kind of fell in love with the industry at an early age and just have I refer to myself sometimes as a lifer.
Okay. Yeah. I love it. I love it. Let me tell you, Jackie, what's going through my head right now, because, and this is like something that I'm learning to do as a podcaster, as a host, is to be flexible, because I had this entire line of questioning around, kind of insurance and scalability and technology and all this. But hearing you now speak live and in person, I'm hearing this kind of leadership and management ethos that's coming out of you that now I want to dive into leadership now with you. Like forget the insurance technical stuff. I've had enough of those.
And it all comes out as part of that leadership story too.
100%. So tell me a little bit about how you built that ethos. Like how did that come about, and how did you find yourself as a leader? Yeah,
I think what I learned from a very early age is to be a servant leader. It can never just be about you.
Yeah.
If you put yourself first. I also see it's anytime you make a decision that put me as a priority, that put me first, I said, I don't deserve to be a leader. And so what do you think about? You think about your employees, you think about your customers, and your customers might be the policyholder,
right,
but it's also the distributor.
Sure.
And so what's that ecosystem of people that are dependent on the transaction, either for keeping a promise, or are dependent on that ecosystem to make a living and support their families. And I think the very best people in the industry are those that see this as a mission of making and keeping promises.
I love that. I love that thought process. It's really funny when you talked about that whole concept of servant leadership. Funny story happened this morning. Downstairs in the gym, it's super small. I was working out this morning like 5 a.m. And this guy comes in with a whole bag and a whole bunch of stuff. This gym is way too small for the number of people that are there. And his shirt, it says, I'm an effing alpha. That's what his shirt says.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, where is this going? And then he just comes in and he's taking up all of this space and he's working out. And I literally sat there and I was like, this guy thinks that to be an alpha, you've got to just run everything and take everything for yourself. Yeah. And by the way, I think of myself as an alpha. But,
me too.
But not in this way where I don't care about anybody else around me. So you're talking about this concept of servant leadership, where being that alpha, being that leader is about serving those in your command, so to speak.
Absolutely. And providing for the future.
Right.
It isn't just about leading for the moment. It's developing leaders for the future, making good people, reinforcing. The hardest thing in insurance is not to have the millions and millions of things that you do, especially in the operations and the service area. How do you make that not about a piece of paper or a transaction, but rather about a moment of truth for everybody?
Right.
This isn't a piece of paper you're dealing with. This is a person's life. And so how do you reinforce that with people? Today happens to be Boss's Day.
Yes, I saw
And
that. Yeah.
I'm kind of in a freelance space right now. I'm between roles. And I sent a note to the 3 leaders that used to report to me at my last company. And I said, happy Boss's Day. Don't forget you're wonderful leaders and you're even better people. And to me, you have to reinforce that because leadership's a hard job.
It is.
Making decisions when it's not easy, sometimes without all of the information, you have to reinforce for those people that being a leader is many things, but it's carrying sometimes a burden for others and doing that without feeling like you're sacrificing a great deal about it. So I think about it as the legacy that you leave and what your purpose as a leader is to do the right thing, make the hard decisions, but also bring in the next generation of leaders.
That's right.
Yeah.
One of the things, Jackie, that I struggled with on my leadership journey, I still struggle with on my leadership journey is, the higher you go up the ladder, the harder it is to maintain self-awareness because there are fewer people who are willing to be real with you. Right. I mean, it's like, that free advice, it stops coming at some point. Right. Yeah. How did you deal with that in your career as you were climbing the ladder? How did you make sure that you were surrounding yourself always with that self-awareness as a leader? Yeah.
I realized very early on, and it's a gift that you can give yourself, 2 things. One is perfect is a trap. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
Yeah.
And 2, never assume you're the smartest person in the room. I am never going to be the smartest person in the room. In the early days, I felt bad because I had a liberal arts degree and everybody else was like a business degree or whatever. Then I realized the value that it brought. I was a better communicator. I looked at things from a much more individualistic human set of lenses that others might not have. And so instead of feeling like I was less, I felt like I bring something unique here. And so that for me was such a thing and I was willing to be wrong. And if people said, I don't think that's a good idea, instead of saying, well, you're wrong, I'm right. Right. I would say, tell me why that is. Or if I saw that look on their face where they were like, I would be like,
tell me more.
Talk to me. I don't have to be right. There's a lot of ways to get to the right answer. Mine might be one of them, but yours might be one too, and it might work better.
Love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I was going through your background, Jackie, and you've got, you seem to be responsible for an incredible amount of transformation and organizational change. Think about those leadership moments. How did you lead organizations through transformation, through massive change? How do you do that?
Yeah, the first thing you have to realize is that people are afraid. They might logically know that the change needs to take place, but a lot of people are afraid to make a bad choice, a bad decision, to take a risk. And because, rightfully so, they may have seen people punished for that before.
Sure.
But you have to create a safe place for them. I've always said to people, if you make a mistake and you did it with good thoughts, or it wasn't malicious, or you didn't do it to be subversive to someone, I'm always going to fly cover for you.
Right.
Don't make that same one again, especially if it has a financial impact. But it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay that it didn't work out perfect. And sometimes that's where you get your greatest learnings. I learned early on, I made assumptions about what I thought I could make my customer do, and I got fed humble pie real fast.
Right.
And so it's okay about that. And I've always said, the kind of leader I wanted to be was I always fly cover when something goes wrong, and I always take the back and put you up front when things are going well. This worked. Well, Rich did that, or, Rob did that. And I was just there to support them. I would never use the word I. I'm not anybody, but we did this, or they did this. And you reinforce that was a really hard decision you made. That was a really hard thing you had to do. Even if it was counseling people.
Sure.
People don't like to deal with conflict. And I think that's one of the things for me. I was never afraid of dealing with conflict, good or bad conflict.
Sure.
And you just have to, you have to lead by example.
100%. I love that. What occurs to me, Jackie, is there are people to whom leadership comes somewhat naturally. And there are some people who find themselves in leadership positions for interesting reasons. How do you coach and how do you bridge the gap? Because I know that in my past and even now, even in my present, I've got folks that are technically capable, They're super smart, strong at what they do. And by virtue of where they are at their level, they have to lead. They have to, maybe not even necessarily titularly, but at least in terms of what they're doing. How do you coach people to whom leadership does not come naturally to be servant leaders, if that's possible?
Yeah, there's a couple of things about that. One of the things that I learned really early on is a lot of people went into management because it was the only way to make more money.
Right.
And so one of the things I've always done at every company I've been at is create career paths where you could reach a senior level.
Got it.
And be an individual contributor. Contributing in a leadership way, but not having to manage people.
Right.
Some people just don't like to do that. And then they can be servant leaders by giving back to the community.
Got it.
But I think with folks, what you have to do is when you see the behavior that reinforces servant leadership for those who are meant to manage, and there are people who naturally come by. Of course, I was bossy when I was younger. That's a leader now. By the way. But I think for those folks is reinforcing. You saw something they did that was very much like you want them to be a servant leader, to always put others first, reinforcing that with them. And if you see them step out and take credit for somebody else's work, or you see them do something that isn't what you really think they want for themselves, because they have to learn along the way, it's
Right.
pulling them aside and say, this is what I observed. Did you recognize that? And most times, 9 times out of 10, they were like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I was doing that. I'm so sorry. And they're like, no, it's a learning opportunity.
That's right.
But there are some people who should not be in leadership. And that's where that whole politics and networking thing, that's when it's used improperly. Politics and network are good things if they're used for good purposes.
Yeah, that makes good sense. You talk about the kind of the I'll call them salary bands at for the individual contributors, and it's funny. I think there was a time when I was first starting out in insurance where that was typically reserved for the actuaries, right? Because you've got these really smart, brilliant people and high demand, but they're not going to be leaders of 100-person organizations. Saw the trend then move into data scientists, right? So then we've got the data scientists, and now we've got AI coming in and all. So there's a shift now organizationally and from a leadership perspective that insurance companies are having to think differently about what leadership looks like and how to lead through organizations. Can you look in your crystal ball and think about where you see insurance going as an industry, and talk to me a little bit about the transformation you think is going to have to occur from a leadership perspective to manage the future insurance organization?
It's going to come back to what it always was. It started out as a people serving people business, and it's going to come back full circle on that. People should not be afraid of technology. Technology is going to allow people to care more. It's not going to displace important roles. It is not going to stop people from growing and learning and giving input. I think what technology is going to allow to happen is for people to make sound decisions, to help others, and to lead bravely into the future. And so I see the role of the manager of the future is really helping to help all of those people that I talked about in that ecosystem at the beginning, the customers, the employees, the distributors, the beneficiaries, they all have important needs, and the company, the industry has an obligation to keeping the promise. My biggest concern, and one of the reasons that I'll never give up trying to transform the insurance industry, is that we have to stay relevant for the future. What insurance stands for will always exist. Protecting yourself against, in the property and health space, it's catastrophic loss. Something terrible happened.
Right.
I'm a Florida resident, and you watch that every day on the news, right? With health, you go through a health scare, and it's the most terrifying, lonely time, and you could be financially ruined by that. Insurance helps with that. On the life and annuity side, in life insurance, it is a gift of love. If you are the person buying the policy and the insured, you will never be there if it's used.
Right.
But the person you leave behind will know that gift of love.
Sure.
In the annuity space, which I think is the fun insurance, you're going to give me money, I'm going to give you more money back, and you're going to have dignity in retirement. So what this industry stands for technology, especially, I have to say it because then I get my points for the day, AI.
Sure. Yeah.
It is going to help create relevance for the future. Digitization, modernization, data protection, which is something I'm very much worried about.
Yeah.
These are all things that technology is going to help facilitate so that we can be a people serving people business.
Jackie, you paint such a kind of a humanistic view of insurance, the insurance transaction even, right? Even as transactional as it can be. And there are people who are worried, and I'd like to know what you would say to them about the fact that technology and AI is, kind of contrary to what you're saying, is actually going to create a larger chasm. What do you say to those folks?
Yeah. So I spent a lot of years in operations. Do you know how many times people call and just to make sure they get the right answer? Best thing that AI is going to bring is consistency in service.
Yes.
So you can call and get a consistent, accurate answer because AI is going to pull all of those 7 screens you were looking at to try and get that answer for that person together in one place. Or even better, it's midnight and I want to look that answer up online. And I can do that.
Certainly.
And it's gonna bring it together in a way that actually as a human being I can understand because nobody understands insurance jargon.
Right,
No one.
right.
And so it's going to facilitate natural language. It's going to facilitate easy answers to hard questions. And so I can't see technology hurting us. And it's also going to make technology understandable. In the old days as a business person, I always knew when the technology people were trying to BS me because they'd say it in jargon. And I would, so they would make me feel stupid. And I don't understand what you said.
Yeah.
You need to tell me in a way that I understand.
I'm a 5th grader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to understand. I'm the business person. Tell me what that means so that I can understand it. Usually if they understood it, they could.
Yeah.
Or I would embarrass them by knowing what they were trying to say.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but no, I really feel like it all comes back. It's full circle. It's all about what are we in the business to do? I always say it broke my heart. I worked for companies, and you had asked a company, the CEO, what's the insurance company's purpose? And it was a publicly traded company, and
Shareholder
to
value.
return shareholder value. And I went, I wanted to tap out. I was like, done. And you know what?
Yeah.
That's not what this business is about. It'll never be that way to me. It will always be taking care of people. Whether it's as a leader, you're taking care of those people underneath you, making sure they get the right bonuses or the right
That's right.
promotions or the right salary increases and sacrificing what you need to help them learn or grow, investing in them in training, or even investing in them by letting them leave you and go to another department.
Yeah.
People were like, are you crazy? You're letting your best person go over here? Yeah, because they're going to have a long life and I want them to stay in this. One of the things I really would love to do for the industry is make it not, people think about the insurance industry and they think about a used car sales. It's the best way to get somebody to leave you alone at Thanksgiving. Say, what do you do for a living? I'm in insurance. Oh, okay. Well, yeah. I want to make it so that people can proudly say and choose to enter the field because it's got such a compelling story.
Right.
And I hope to make that something that, as I look back, I can have a little bit of an impact on that.
Jackie, you are absolutely killing me with optimism right now. It's like I'm crushed by optimism.
Yeah.
What are you worried about?
I worry about security. I worry about bad people doing bad things. The scariest thing and I've managed it for probably about 10 years now, is cybersecurity. With the entrance of more modern technology, AI is one of those examples. The bad people go where the money's at.
Yeah.
You can't make money on a 1% margin business, but where there's large amounts of money sitting, especially in the life with permanent products and annuities, obviously by their nature, you can make it convenient to acquire the policy, but you can't make it convenient to do bad things or take over an account or steal people's money. And I think that's the thing that keeps people up at night. Also, as an insurance company, you're only as strong as your weakest vendor. And so having relationships with tens of possibly hundreds of vendors you're always worried about that encroachment,
Yeah.
ransomware,
Yeah.
cyber breaches, all of this, and we've all been victims of it. Be it retail or whatever. And that's the stuff that worries me is how do we, again, in a trust-based business, agent sells a policy to someone, it's a piece of paper.
Right.
It's a promise. It's a commitment. This is an abstract thing you're selling. You're selling an answer to a big problem and trust that you're going to keep me secure.
Sure.
And you're going to do what you said you're going to do if I do what I say I'm going to do. Imagine you have to go to your client and say, your data's been exposed.
Right.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the thing companies are most worried about. There's always going to be money to be made in the insurance business. That's the way it works. You have to protect people. You have to reinforce the bond of trust at all points. Employees, distributors, customers, regulators. And I respect regulators. They have a big job to do.
Yeah, that conversation came up in two different places, specifically relative to AI, actually. What's kind of interesting, I was talking to the founder of a company called Monitor, and what they are talking about is this third-party risk management that you're surfacing, where with AI embedded in all of these third-party products, how do you ensure the security of the data? How do you ensure the behavior of the AI models, which you may not even be in control of as an insurance company that's consuming this product? And similarly, the kind of where the regulatory dynamics are going to go, where they could upset your business model. So I think you're hitting that third-party risk management piece is going to be huge.
Yeah, and you have to ask the right questions when you're onboarding a vendor. Then you have to remember to ask it again later on because things change.
Yeah.
And, you can work with the best vendors in the world, but it's always trust but verify. Yeah. Trust but verify.
Yeah, yeah. I was when I was CIO of my last firm, I was thinking to myself, man, I bought the heck out of CrowdStrike, man. We had CrowdStrike and we were, proud, no one's going to get to us. We've got CrowdStrike. And man, holy cow, look what happens. And
yeah, I brought that up at a company I was at, and I said, your vendors, you think you trust your vendors?
Yeah.
I don't care how good they are. I don't care what their job is. That's right. You have to ask questions. Even to the point, I was at a startup and we were putting together all the controls. We started an insurance company from scratch. I'm one of those people. I was around. Yeah.
I love it.
And I was putting controls in, and one of them was, BC, business continuity and disaster recovery, and you have to list all the possible scenarios for things that can go wrong. And this was pre-COVID. And I put on there a pandemic, that it was low risk, but high exposure. And I had an argument with the CEO.
He laughed at you.
Yeah, he says, I'm not putting that on. You need to take it off. I said, I won't take it off. I won't take it off because it is a possibility. When COVID hit, I went, hi, remember me? Yeah.
I love it.
It was a real deal, and we were ready for it.
Yeah.
I mean, by nature of being a startup, we had been totally digital anyway. It also reinforced the importance of insurtechs to the carriers who had, before that had said, you're very cute, go do your little thing.
Sure.
And the insurtechs all thought carriers were stupid and didn't know what they were talking about. There's a middle ground that needs to be struck now. And that's what I'm excited about, too, is that you're seeing the convergence and the partnership of insurtech and traditional carriers because they can both see the value in each other now.
Yeah,
it's nice.
It is nice. It is nice to see, and I've heard this a bunch from large carriers during panel sessions, that they are recognizing the weight and restrictiveness of their legacy and embracing.
It's terrifying.
Right, that they're finally admitting it, right? But it is terrifying, but they're embracing insurtech, realizing that there is a flexibility, particularly on the MGA front, where there's a flexibility that they don't have.
Yeah.
But I wonder at what point there's then the call to action that says, wait, is this going to be our status quo, or are we going to do something about it?
Yeah, I think I feel really bad for the carriers because it's like an anchor.
Yeah.
It's weighing them down. And I do think that the advances in technology and the capability to compare data more effectively will help people be less frightened of the conversions that they need to do. In the old days, they knew they needed to do conversions, but their data comparisons were so weak.
Yeah.
And that's where you got into trouble. I think it's getting better. And so these tools, again, are going to be coming to this nice intersection of people want off legacy, and they're going to have to invest in it. Before COVID, everybody thought they had a 10-year digital runway. And
18 months.
Yeah, you're like, oh my gosh, now, the future is now.
Yeah.
The future is now. You
Yep.
better figure this out. And you're going to have to do the hard work. And sometimes it's not going to show an immediate ROI, but it is business critical.
Yes.
Sometimes the ROI is we need to stay competitive. And this is now table stakes.
Exactly.
And so it's not a luxury anymore.
Yep.
It's a necessity.
No, you've got it. You got it right.
Yeah.
This ITC, this is our third conference post-COVID, third ITC post-COVID, if I got that right. And it finally feels like we're back. If it took a while for that flywheel to get going, and it feels like we're back. What are you excited about this year? What are you looking to get out of the conference this year?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because I was here. I wasn't at the first one, but I was here. I've been about 4 or 5, and at one point I was worried that it was going to take too much of a slant toward becoming a traditional conference. I'm seeing much more in the startup VC space. Carriers are there, but they're also listening more than they used to. And so there's this nice balance being struck between all the players realizing they all have a spot. Mm-hmm. And it's just, there's a different energy.
Yeah.
There is. And it's nice. And I'm here with 8,000 or 9,000 of my best friends.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I love the networking dynamic out of all of this, and it's kind of like a reunion every year.
Yeah, with sensory overload.
100%, 100%. I have resigned myself to stay on campus this time, though. I will not leave because that's when things go bad. So
yeah, exactly. You can't win at that game, but I've gotten my steps in for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Well, Jackie, thank you so much for the time. This is such a great conversation. And I know you're super busy. I appreciate you investing the time here.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you for joining this episode of 5 Minutes. If you've enjoyed our discussion, we'd love for you to share it with anyone else you think might find it interesting. Also, please subscribe on whatever podcast platform you're listening on and hit that bell to stay on top of the game with our practical 5-minute episodes. We look forward to seeing you again next week.